everyone to this formal meeting of the Salt Lake City Council. Before we get started, if you would like to make a comment on any of the public comment issues that are scheduled for tonight, please fill out the appropriate card and make sure, so we have different colored cards for different subjects that you want to speak on. And then if you want to speak just during the general comment period, we have a card for that as well. If you have a card that you filled out, please give it to a member of our city council staff. So Jen there in the green, who's raising her hand, is one of our staff members. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and get started. We are really happy to have all of you joining us here today, whether you are joining us in person or online. Thank you for your patience as we continue tracking COVID cases and trying to make the best decisions to keep people safe. We encourage you, if you're to continue joining us in whichever way you feel more comfortable, whether that's in person or online. If you're here in person, we encourage you to wear a mask during the meeting, although you're not required to at all. Disposable masks are available outside our meeting door. If you would like to have staff bring you a mask, you can raise your hand and we will bring that to you. If you're here to give public comment, feel free to remove your mask once you're called to address the council at the podium. So you'll come up here to this podium with the plastic case around it. To start with is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So thank you again to everyone who has joined us. I'm going to go over our rules of decorum. If you would like to give a comment today, we will be accepting comments in person, online, via WebEx, via telephone, and finally via telephone for those who wish to call in. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention a few additional rules. The council has always set guidelines in order to ensure that our meetings are orderly, civil, and efficient. The guidelines help everyone feel comfortable and safe to share their thoughts without fear or intimidation. To achieve this, our rules of decorum take effect the moment that you arrive. We respect all points of view and welcome new insights. Please be respectful while sharing your comments. Avoid yelling, using profanity, making racial slurs, or obscene or defamatory remarks. If you violate the rules, we will mute your line or ask you to stop. If you feel the need to use such language in order to express your opinion, you may do so by calling our 24-hour comment line. Additionally, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your name doesn't comply, our staff will let you know. For those joining on WebEx, please watch your chat window in case we try to reach out to you. Isaac from our staff will moderate the WebEx and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks tonight, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal informational updates. You can also send in your comments if you run out of time tonight or if you wish to submit your comments another way by mailing them to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114-5476, or you can email us at council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call our council office phone number at 801-535-7654. So we are now to the public hearings portion of the agenda. Taylor Hill from our staff will be calling names of those who wish to comment. We'll call the names of the people on WebEx and in person based on your order of registration. Once we receive, once we open the public comment period, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so people have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. If you're on WebEx, your line will unmute and you may begin speaking. If you're here in person, as I said before, please step up to the podium once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. The contact information is the same as what I just gave you. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff calls your name, let us know that you're just here to listen. Our first public hearing is on item B1, which is regarding an ordinance vacating Green Street. This is an alley vacation request. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Brian Fulmer from the council staff, who will give us a short introduction. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal to vacate a T-shaped alley between 1300 South and Harrison Avenue and between Green Street and 700 East. The alley was incorporated into abutting properties sometime after homes between the alley's east side and 700 East were demolished for UDOT's expansion of 700 East in the 1960s. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with our first public comment. Is anybody here to speak on item B1, the Green Street alley vacation?
Council Chair, there's no one registered to speak to this item.
Okay, and I'm not seeing anybody that's here to speak to this item in person. So I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan and a second from Councilmember Petro Eschler. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call a vote. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. Okay, we are now at item number B2, which is an ordinance rezoning and making master plan amendments at 16 South 800 West. Before we begin taking comments, I'll turn the time back to Brian again to give us a short introduction.
Thank you. This is a proposal to amend the zoning map for the parcel at 16 South 800 West adjacent to the Folsom Trail in City Council District 2 from TSA UNT, which is Transit Station Area Urban Neighborhood Transition, to TSA UNC, or Transit Station Area Urban Neighborhood Core, to potentially construct a mixed-use building on the site. Additionally, the proposal would amend the North Temple Boulevard plan to list the subject property as core rather than its current transition designation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
Council Chair, there is one person registered to speak to this item. That will be Nigel Swaby.
Okay.
Nigel, you are unmuted.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nigel Swaby, and I spoke on this item when it was in front of Planning Commission. For your information, there was no opposition from the Fair Park Community Council to this. And I'm speaking personally, but I wanted to add that in. I think that this is a great addition to the neighborhood. It's an underutilized piece of property that is between the Folsom Trail and railroad tracks right now. There were plans for it in the past that didn't go through because of slow development of the Folsom Trail. And I'm excited to see that TAG development wanted to do something with this. And I'm looking forward to seeing the plans that they have once this rezone is approved. This will give them more flexibility in the design that will hopefully allow them to better incorporate this building with the ground level of the Folsom Trail next to it. So I'm very supportive of it and look forward to seeing what the plans are for this to get more housing and to get some retail in the area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments to this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion to this? Seeing none, we will go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Pui?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petro Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That is unanimous. We will move to item B3, which is an ordinance amending the budget, budget number 2 for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Sam Owen from the council staff to give a short introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before the council for a public hearing at this time is the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget amendment number 2, as you said, which consists of 4 items related to the Salt Lake City International Airport and the system of airports, the entire Department of Airports at the Salt Lake City. First item being $683 million for construction of a 16-gate expansion to the B concourse at the International Airport. Second item being $3.9 million for planning and design on new taxiway construction as contemplated in the draft proposed airport master plan. $900,000 for planning and design on utility service capacity upgrades of the Tooele Valley Airport facility, and just over $1 million for compensation plan adjustments reflecting the mayor's recommended and council adopted fiscal year 2022-2023 budget related to non-represented employees at the airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak to this budget item?
Council Chair, there is one person registered to speak. That will be George Chapman.
Okay.
George, you are unmuted.
Okay, as you know, I'm against the airport budget change increase, which ignores ADA requirements due to their underfunding of a contract to provide carts. They have an issue with safety due to low pay and appropriate drivers in the contract. They often have less than one cart, so the airlines are not able to provide enough wheelchairs to cover for that, because the wheelchairs are being used to substitute for the lack of carts. So I'm saying the airport should prioritize carts, some way to get mobility challenged people to be able to handle it. The city and airport should demand more respect for the many that complain about it, and you know that. They're complaining left and right about it. But they're often unable to walk to non-Delta airlines, and that's a problem. So the solution is to redo the contract, increase the priority in Budget Amendment 2, and provide enough carts and appropriate drivers to meet the required ADA federal transportation requirements. I need to remind you, this city and airport does not meet the ADA Bill of Rights for airports. So $688 million, and they're still ignoring that. Thanks for listening.
Any other comments to budget? Okay. Please step up to the podium.
I didn't come here tonight to speak to this issue, but George raises a good point, because when I've been at the airport, I'm 81 years old, and when I'm at the airport and I face that challenge to go to the airport early on after surgery, and when I was marginally able to make the walk, I used the wheelchair. It was a good option. Rather than being old and slow and take me forever to get there, I used the wheelchair. And if there's limited wheelchairs available and I'm taking that wheelchair away from somebody that actually needs it, that's not how we should function here in Salt Lake City. And if it's something this council can do to make sure that either make sure that carts are mandatory, somebody provides the carts, or there's wheelchairs available for the people that are marginally, because of the situation, it's causing problems, especially if you need a wheelchair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commenters on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt the budget amendment.
Second.
I have a motion that from Councilmember Petra Eschler and a second from Councilmember Dugan. All in favor?
Aye. Do we need
Can get a roll call?
It's a roll call.
Oh, whoops. Yes, I am going to roll call it. All in favor? Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
Mono.
Yes.
Valdemoros.
Yes.
Petra Eschler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. We are now on to item B4, which is budget amendment number 3 for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Before we take public comment on this item, I'll turn the time over to Ben Ludke from the City Council staff to give a short introduction. Thank you.
Budget Amendment number 3 has 20 proposed items, which have a total expenditure of $60.5 million. Some of the largest items include $36 million from a federal grant to retrofit the City Creek water treatment plant, $6 million for deeply affordable housing at 40% AMI, area median income or below, $3 million for new Packer refuse trucks, and $2 million from a state grant to extend protected bike lanes on 300 West from 900 South to 300 South. The staff report and the administration's proposal are available in today's meeting packet, and the council has a budget webpage with this information that's updated throughout the process. It's available at tinyurl.com/SLC FY23. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Are there any comments for budget amendment number 3?
Council Chair, there is one person registered to comment for this item. That will be George Chapman. George, you are unmuted.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jim. And in memory of Jim Webster, the $800,000 in Budget Amendment 3 in the CIP holding account appears to include the ADA access to Miller Park, and it should be utilized if the city really thinks that older people and mobility challenged deserve equity and respect. And I'm against a budget for funding 100% affordable when inclusionary zoning would be more effective, funding reducing impact fees. And we wouldn't be relegating low income to concentrations of poor, which again is disrespectful. 90 units could be hundreds more with inclusionary zoning. But this city keeps ignoring the significant negative impact near shelters and 100% low income facilities like Palmer Court. And even the Housing Authority had issues with senior housing at their low-income affordable facilities. Ask Cindy. So again, all of the money that this city is providing for low-income housing would provide many, many more housing units for low-income housing if the city used the funding for inclusionary zoning and offered reduced or elimination of impact fees. Appreciate it if the $1.6 million from UDOT goes towards increasing city street conditions to good instead of fair, which really, in reality, is bad condition. And the Renters Protection Analyst should be at court to stop renters from being evicted into homelessness. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Any other commenters on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City only for item A2 as shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan and a second from Councilmember Poi. Is there any discussion to this? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Poi?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mono? Yes. Valdemoros?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Petro Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That is unanimous. We will move to item B5, which is the Growing SLC Implementation Plan Amendment. Before we take comments on this, I'll turn the time over to Allison Rowland from the council staff to give a short introduction.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you,
for
Mr. Chair.
transparency's sake, could we state that that last item that you approved is the housing funding? Is that correct on that budget amendment?
Yes.
Budget amendment number 5, just the part that is for the housing, $6 million, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
so it was budget amendment number 3, but
A2, which is the deeply affordable housing to address immediate and long-term homeless needs.
yes.
And then, sorry, this is probably for Cindy Lou. Do we need to defer the rest of it to a future council meeting? Or we already know that?
By the nature of your motion, it will need a part 2 because you only adopted one part of the budget amendment as proposed.
Good question.
Great. So back to B5. No problem. Thanks for clarifying. The Growing SLC Implementation Plan Amendment. Allison Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is regarding the ordinance to amend the Growing Salt Lake City Implementation Plan. In 2022, the state began to require that an implementation plan be added to the city's annual moderate income housing plan. This implementation plan must be adopted by the council by October 1st. The Department of Community and Neighborhoods has developed this new implementation plan, which will be a supplement to the city's moderate income housing plan, which in turn is part of Growing Salt Lake City, which is the city's existing 5-year housing plan. The full Growing SLC plan is scheduled to be replaced by an updated housing plan in early 2023. You are scheduled to potentially take action tonight on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to comment on item B5?
Council Chair, there are 2 people registered for this item. The first will be Cindy Cromer, followed by George Chapman. Cindy is in person to speak.
Hi, my name is Cindy Cromer. When I first heard about this opportunity for state funding, I thought that it had something to do with moderate income housing, but the funding is actually for transportation, as I understand it. Then I looked at what the city was including as the strategies for moderate income housing with money going to transportation, not housing. 3 proposals that have had significant public opposition: the RMF 30 modifications, the parking ordinance, and the affordable housing overlay. At the time I first heard about the proposal for moderate income housing, all 3 of these strategies were stalled as a result of public opposition. Now 2 of them are moving forward very rapidly without additional opportunity for public comment. As you just heard, the deadline for the application to the state is October 1st. I see 4 problems with this sleight of hand. No one is talking about what should be the first step, fixing the completely dysfunctional housing loss mitigation ordinance. We're going to continue to allow the demolition of existing housing. This ordinance has not worked in 25 years. Secondly, the market has changed immensely since the council tabled these proposals related to housing. The density bonus and the RMF 30 modifications wouldn't have worked 2 years ago, and it's certainly not going to work now with the accelerating value of land. Then last July of 2021, I noticed that the definitions for housing in the zoning ordinance are a mess. For example, I have 2 units by definition. They are timeshares in vacation areas. None of my rentals qualify as units. No one is dealing with adaptive reuse. That's the 4th point, and I will send these 4 points to you, unless it's to increase the housing available for our most needy residents in outdated motels. We really need to look seriously at adaptive reuse and quit sending buildings to the landfill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next will be George Chapman. George, you are unmuted.
Okay, I'm against the plan, obviously, since it ignores opening the west side for more housing, which is really important to low income and present residents of the west side. This plan, without that, screws the west side again. HB 462, item A, says rezone for housing, but Salt Lake City is ignoring the tens of thousands of potential acres. Why? And transit corridors are not permanent with buses. Look at your work packet, which had bad data on 2 bus routes. Reduced parking is hypocritical since more parking is needed at bus stops to increase ridership. And less parking discriminates against elderly, and studies show it discourages transit use. Electric vehicles need off-street parking, but only if you care about reducing air pollution. Residents do not want less parking minimums. Developers are begging for more land, which is available on the west side, which has lots of low-cost housing there. And encouraging apartments is making people poor, 14 times more poorer. And only 4 comments are shown in your work packet, which shows a really bad public outreach on this. Putting all low income in one building, treating them like animals in a zoo, is disrespectful. And what happened to inclusionary zoning? What you're planning on doing looks like you're encouraging redeveloping high-cost land areas instead of the west side, west of I-215, and that creates $4,000 a month homes. That's not affordable except on Mars. The stationary plans need to recognize the importance of public safety, which is ignored in this city, and allowing multifamily residents.
Thank you. Any other comments to this item? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amendment to the implementation plan of growing the SLC, a 5-year housing plan, 2018-2022.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Petro Eschler. Is there any discussion to this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Hui?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petro Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. We are now at what may be the main event. I don't know. From the looks of it. Items B6 and B7, which are both regarding the Other Side Village, they will be heard as one item. They'll be heard as one item. So we'll go ahead and open the, first, before we open the public comment, I'll turn the time over to Allison Rowland and Brian Fulmer, who will give a short introduction to the 2 components of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll provide the introduction.
Okay.
As you said, this is a 2-part public hearing, both heard together. Excuse me. For the public benefits analysis and lease, the council is considering whether to lease portions of the properties at 1850 West Indiana Avenue and 1965 West 500 South for 40 years at $1 per year to the Other Side Academy, or TOSA. TOSA agrees to pay for all costs to remediate the site and for the development and operation of the Other Side Village pilot project. Public benefits analysis identified additional benefits to the pilot project, including a new model for supporting people experiencing homelessness, including case management, 54 new housing units for households with incomes below 30% of area median income, which is about $21,510 for a single person, and the activation of a currently vacant property and more. Any future requests to lease additional city properties for less than fair market value would be submitted to the council and include a supplemental public benefits analysis. The proposed zoning amendment would change the zoning designation on portions of the property at 1850 West Indiana Avenue and 1965 West 500 South from public lands to FBUN2 or form-based urban neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, are we going to hear from Allison too, or Brian, are you covering it for both?
That was the introduction for both.
Okay, great. Thanks. Taylor, let's start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are about 23 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Michael Harmon, followed by Michael Clara, and then Wesley Stein.
Hey.
Mike, you are unmuted.
Good evening. I am speaking tonight as the co-chair of the Poplar Grove Neighborhood Alliance. Our mission is to nurture genuine civic engagement through community organizing. I've served as a former chair of the Poplar Grove Community Council and have lived and worked in the neighborhood for the past 30 years. Professionally, I work to support the needs of students experiencing homelessness in the Salt Lake City School District. I'm here to speak in support of the rezoning request of the Other Side Village. As a resident of this community, I recognize the need for multiple approaches to reduce the number of individuals and families in our community experiencing homelessness. Some will thrive in permanent supportive housing projects like Palmer Court and Sunrise Metro. Others do better in less concentrated situations where they have a voucher and are able to use it in a qualified project or complex that meets their needs. But as the proliferation of urban camping continues, we, as a community, need to look for other alternatives. The proposed village will not meet the needs of all those choosing to camp, but for some, this could be the opportunity they have waited for to live a sober life in a residential community that is supportive, safe, and provides a sense of belonging. The village is also proposing some public-facing enterprises like a bodega, possible barbershop, community gathering spaces, ultimately a performing arts space, and much, much more. I recognize that the West Side has been the landing place for marginalized communities, and this is no different. I have seen the good work that the Other Side Village has done, and I know that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. If the past behavior of the Other Side Village and their multiple endeavors are indication of their potential success, then I am all in. I strongly encourage you to vote in support of the zoning change for the entire project and recognize the public benefit this project will provide in affordable housing units and commercial entities so the Other Side Village can start helping our unsheltered friends transition into a supportive community and ultimately a permanent housing situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Michael Clara, followed by Wesley Stein, and then Daniel Fail.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can
hear
hear you.
Okay. So I live about 4 blocks from the location where the Other Side Village will be. And when the location was announced, I was opposed to it, as was a number of my neighbors, for various reasons, and that I'm sure you'll hear about tonight, why people in our neighborhood, and I live in Glendale, right off of Indiana, would be opposed to it. People from the Other Side Village reached out to us when we made comments on Facebook, and the opposition that I have has since dissipated, and I now support the project. And one of the compelling reasons why I was able to be confident in my support was looking at their track record with the program they have, which is called the Other Side Academy off of 700 East in Salt Lake City, that serves as a training program for, the Tribune says, for convicted criminals and people with substance use disorders. And so their record speaks for itself. Any of the concerns or fears that we might have, or me and my neighbors had, that I've talked to on the west side, we don't see those happening with their program on the east side. So that's why we can throw our support behind this program, because we think it'll do good in terms of addressing the homelessness issue in our city. And I would ask the city council to also support the Other Side Village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Wesley Stein, followed by Daniel Fail, and then Nigel Swaby. Wesley is in person to speak.
hopefully that was saying that Wesley Sign could talk.
Yes.
I've lived on the west side. We had the Sea Rancho Motel on the west side, Rancho Lanes, and we've always loved the west side. I've seen what these people have done on 7th East and First South. I drive by that area very often, and I'm amazed at the efforts that have been put in and how they've turned people who were not productive into people that are productive. So I'm in full support of this program. I think it's a great step trying to help our people that are kind of lost right now, the street people. It's very positive. I think it gives them self-confidence, and they look out after each other so that they abide by the laws and the things that they should do. So I would request support of the council to these individuals.
Next will be Daniel Fail, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Charles Coltrane. Daniel is in person to speak.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Daniel, and I'm speaking on behalf of the L.V. Carter Trust regarding the proposed Other Side Village project. L.V. Carter's family owns property at 1802 to 1818 Indiana Avenue. Collectively, the Carters own 9 parcels comprising about 4 acres with approximately 650 linear feet of shared property, with the lines of the property shared with the Other Side Village project. First, we'd like to state that conceptually we're in favor of the project and hope to interact with the city and developers in a positive manner that will be proactive and protect the Carter's assets while offering the project the best chance of success. Our primary concerns at this point in time are, 1, traffic. We want to ensure that the use as industrial with the likelihood of large commercial vehicles entering and leaving the Carter property is not impeded. Regarding ingress and egress, given the shape of the Carter site, there's a very high probability that in the future development that there would be a driveway on the western edge of the property. We want to make sure that the project does not place a driveway adjacent to this location, thereby impeding both properties from safe and efficient ingress and egress. Regarding site design, we want to make sure that adjacent uses remain compatible. Regarding security, given the scale of the project, we want to make sure that the property boundaries are respected and that public frontage areas for properties surrounding the project are kept clean and not become an area of loitering. Regarding buffering, we believe it's important to create a sensible and aesthetically acceptable buffer between uses. Utilities, it's important to note that projects can overtax utilities, and we just want to make sure that the properties and development can operate within industry standards. Unfair targeted development burdens, we just want to make sure that the project will in no way delete or reduce entitlements afforded to M1 property, which the Carters is. Additionally, setbacks or restrictions would be devastating to the Carters and their property, which have been in beneficial use for many decades from both a use and competitive standpoint. Thank you guys very much. Thank you guys very much.
Next will be Nigel Swaby, followed by Charles Coltrane, and then Turner Bitten. Nigel, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Nigel Swaby, and I'm the chair of the Fair Park Community Council. The Fair Park Community Council Executive Board is pleased to support the rezone request necessary to build the Other Side Village community and social enterprises. Though we support this project, we would again state our concern about the concentration of deeply affordable, low-income, and homeless overflow housing on the west side of Salt Lake. We do see the value of the Other Side Villages project and consider it to be different than the other housing projects we've seen to date. The project's leaders have been doing community outreach for several years and presented at our community council last summer. I've seen them engage with the community on many levels with people who support and oppose the project. They've been professional and courteous. Our city could use more providers like the Other Side Village who build community, take pride in their work, and are accountable for their actions and those of their residents. The homeless and crime situation in Salt Lake City is at the highest levels in history. It's urgent the city's leadership takes concrete steps to reduce both. We believe the creation and expansion of the Other Side Village is a critical step and urge you to advance it forward as quickly as possible.
Next, we will hear from Charles Coltrane, followed by Turner Bitten, and then Preston Cottrane. Charles is in person to speak.
My name is Charles Coltrane. I am a resident of Glendale. Before that, I was a resident of Poplar Grove. I moved in the Grove area in 1955. Seen a lot of things happen in this community. We are now at a crisis stage in our city and in my community. The homeless problem has grown, and I have seen little or no support from Salt Lake City in bringing that homeless problem into line. 2 years ago, I had 25 units with homeless people living in them across the street from my house. When I called the police department to ask them for assistance in getting the homeless moved to a different location, I was told someone at City Hall told them not to enforce. I was enraged. You and the mayor's office turned your back on an entire community for 3 months. 2 weeks ago, I had 5 units in front of my house. It took them a week to get them moved. Each day, I have another unit moving in front of the house. Some of them are towed in place and set there without license or insurance or even running engines. Is there a law in this city that says we are to obey the parking regulations or not? I firmly believe that there is a law. And I was originally hoping that the village would be an answer to some of the problems I'm seeing in my city. If they don't take the motorhomes off the street, it does not. Thank you.
Next will be Turner Bitten, followed by Preston Cochrane, and then Ty Bellamy. Turner is in person to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Turner Bitten. I'm the chair of the Glendale Neighborhood Council. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the Other Side Village. I've had an opportunity over the last year to get to know the folks from the village and the Other Side Academy. And as a lot of my neighbors have expressed tonight, homelessness and our unsheltered neighbors living in parks and public spaces are counting on us to advocate for them and to advocate for housing solutions. And I think it's important tonight to speak in support of not only an innovative housing solution, but also much needed economic development on the west side. Glendale is undergoing a pretty rapid transformation right now. The number of housing units proposed on Redwood Road will significantly increase our population, increase the number of people living on the west side of the neighborhood. And the opportunity to have a bodega and the other opportunities, commercial opportunities proposed as part of the village are, I think, one of the most essential and defining parts of the village. I'd encourage you tonight to not only, or in the future when you vote, to not only approve the project in concept, but to make a commitment to making sure that it succeeds. That's something that myself and other members of the neighborhood are committed to. Later this month, as part of the CIP process, we'll be submitting a CIP proposal to fund a transit study to make sure that transit moving east and west on Indiana, that there could potentially be a transit hub that connects the 9 line buses, pedestrians, and the rest of the neighborhood to the commercial opportunities that will be at the village and to connect the new residents that will be living on the west side of Redwood Road. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I encourage you to support the village. Thanks.
Next will be Preston Cochrane, followed by Ty Bellamy, and then Amy Stocks. Preston, you're unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Preston Cochrane. I'm the Vice President of Housing and Homeless Services at Valley Behavioral Health and the former Executive Director of Shelter the Homeless. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the Other Side Village. Valley Behavioral Health owns and operates close to 300 units throughout Salt Lake Valley of deeply affordable housing for those with mental illness or have a history of chronic homelessness. Our housing programs range from independent living to supervised housing and are primarily focused on helping individuals reach their goals for recovery. In order for our clients to thrive, they need stable housing. A safe and comfortable home, environment, and community is especially important for those struggling with mental illness, trauma, and chronic health conditions. This helps pave the way for a successful recovery. Valley Behavioral Health has worked closely with the Other Side Village leadership team to design and create programming for the Welcome neighborhood, which will temporarily house and prepare individuals who are experiencing chronic homelessness to transition from the street to village life and connect them to valuable resources and services needed, including mental health treatment, supportive housing, medication management, and targeted case management. Valley Behavioral Health is pleased to support the creation of the Side Village project, and we look forward to continuing our combined efforts to provide deeply affordable housing options and on-site wraparound mental health services to the village residents. Thank you.
Next will be Ty Bellamy, followed by Amy Stocks, and then Fred Alvery. Ty is in person to speak.
Good evening. I'm here to remind us all that we are our brother's keeper. It is our responsibility to make sure that our family members, unsheltered, are safe, healthy, and have a place to heal. We have the opportunity right now to make that change, to make that choice. I'm asking you to support this village. This is the first step in the right direction. If there's anybody that I would ever support, it would be the Other Side Village. It's imperative that people have a place to call home. Everybody needs that. I'm asking you to remember that it's going to take a village, and I'm asking you to approve whatever's necessary so that it can be built. Thank you.
Next will be Amy Stocks, followed by Fred Alvery, and then Tim Stay. Amy is in person.
Good evening. My name is Amy Stocks. I work in homeless services, and I am the minority opinion in the room. I believe we're not here to consider whether the Other Side Academy is doing a fantastic job. I agree they're doing a fantastic job. I think we're talking about two separate issues. We're talking about a treatment center and homelessness. I work in the homeless community and visited the Other Side Academy and was told that they do not accept people with disabilities. They do not accept people with any medication, including antidepressants. I believe that this is going to be different at the Other Side Village, but I would ask, what experience do they have at this point working with those folks with disabilities on medication? The Other Side Academy doesn't follow best practices that many other service providers do, like trauma-informed care. I don't believe that they have the experience like other service providers who have been around our community for decades. They claim to have research on the efficacy of their program, which I went to the website, and when I clicked click here, it took me to their donate page. I have not seen any research on the efficacy of this program and would love to. The Other Side Academy also will prioritize those who seek housing, and I'd like to know more clarification on that. Prioritize or require? Because the homeless community that we're talking about, that we see on the street, many of them aren't ready to get sober. So will they be back on the street, and this will again be City Council's problem? So Council, I would ask you to consider a few things. Why hasn't TOSA worked with very many homeless service providers that are staples in this community? Why aren't they here in support? And are we just funding a treatment center, which I don't think that the city should subsidize? Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Fred Alvery, followed by Tim Stay, and then Casey O'Connor. Fred is in person to speak.
Yeah, hello, my name is Fred Alvery, and up until a couple of weeks ago, I was homeless, but thanks to the Other Side Village and the good people, they've helped me get into transitional housing over at Valley Behavioral. All good people. They work an incredible amount of hours. I mean, Sam put in 85 hours one week. This is the kind of work ethic that people are putting forth to get this thing going. The village is a good thing. It's something that's needed. It's granted, the village isn't for everybody. There's a strict vetting process to get in there. You know, it's for homeless veterans, recovering drug addicts, chronically homeless, people with mental health problems like myself. You know, to me, it'd be nice living in a tiny home, great. But that's only part of the picture people see. They they don't see the help that people like such as myself and Jack and Tanya and Scott and other the original villagers have received in order to help us better our lives. You know, it's the tiny village is just part of the big picture. But the program as a whole is just all encompassing. So it's given me a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. So, you know, it's that's pretty much all I gotta say. Thank you.
Next will be Tim Stay, followed by Casey O'Connor and Scott Howell. Tim's in person.
Thank you. Appreciate the work that the council has done to consider this, and I want to address a couple of items. We don't claim to be have the clinical credentials, and that's why we're working closely with those who do to be part of the solution. We do feel like we have a model that brings about whole person change through the non-clinical case management that we have with the village coaches. We understand how to help people bring about their capacities and apply them in meaningful and productive ways. We feel like we have an understanding of how to employ social enterprises that give opportunities to those who want to live a productive life. And so we feel like that the other side village can bring that to pass in a unique and new model. And that's part of why we're doing this as a pilot phase, to show, can it work? Can we bring something new to the service providers? And if it works, then we can expand. If it doesn't, then we haven't expanded it too big for that. We have tried to be very intentional about engaging the community, and many of our changes that we've made have been because of community feedback, and we've so appreciated the engagement of the community. You'll notice we've intentionally asked a number of the people who are supporting not to come up and comment, so we don't keep you all here till midnight, but you can see we've asked them to, those who are in support are wearing the badge that they support the village, and so we hope you can get an indication of the type of support that we've gotten. Thank you so much for all the work you've put into this project.
Next, we will hear from Casey O'Connor, followed by Scott Howell, and then Gregory Youngblood. Casey, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm coming through okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of going to throw cold water on this parade too. I mean, I've seen so many exercises in government or subsidized assistance fall on their face and wind up costing the taxpayers abundant amount of money. And the people I see on the street are really not the ones that are going to go into a tiny home, all of a sudden be recuperated and go get a job. I'd like to know what the recidivism rate is. How many of these people that go into here are mentally or physically handicapped? How many of them have skills? How many are drug addicts? How many have worked last year? How many have criminal records? And like I say, who subsidizes this in the end? And this tiny home thing, I mean, I know there were times in my life I would have given my eye teeth to have a tiny home. And I was working and I was providing and not being a burden on society, whatever you want to call it. I was productive, paying taxes and stuff. Why can't they just build an institution like with a lot of beds, a cot? I don't see why they have to have tiny homes in a residential village and everything. I mean, the people I see on the street that are muttering to themselves, they don't care, they don't want to improve themselves. They're content being homeless. They like being homeless. They like the no restrictions, no bounds, no nothing. Anyway, I am dead set against this right now, unless somebody can convince me different. Thank you very much.
Next will be Scott Howell, followed by Gregory Youngblood, and then Anthony Sudwicks. It
That-
appears Scott has left the meeting, so we will move on to Gregory, who is in person.
Good evening. My name is Gregory Youngblood, and I'm here to support the Other Side Village as well as the Other Side Academy, more so for what they represent. And that's three things: opportunity, peer accountability, and hope. Opportunity for a person to actually see that they can get out of the mess they're in if they want to. Peer accountability, someone to help them get out of the mess they're in and also correct them when they need to. And if we do this right, collectively as a state and as a nation, it just creates hope. Thank you.
Next will be Anthony Sudweeks, followed by Peter Brown, and then Soren Simonson. Anthony is in person.
Thanks for letting me speak tonight. My name is Anthony Sudweeks, and I'm the co-founder and co-executive director of the Wall Stegner Academy. We're a public charter school serving students in grades K through 8. In fact, we're the largest public school west of I-15 in the city. We're located about 2 blocks from the proposed zone change. When the news stories first were published earlier this year about this project, I immediately received dozens of concerned phone calls from both my staff and parents about the new, quote, homeless shelter being built down the road from us. So I contacted the Other Side Academy and I asked them if I could come and see what they were doing and see what they were all about. They immediately invited me and took me on a tour. It's important to know that I walked through all 68 of my classrooms each week. This means that I'm in over a dozen classrooms every day. My experience as an instructional leader has made me an expert in evaluating the climate of a classroom. Is it positive? Is it uplifting? Is it negative? Is it punitive? Within 5 minutes, I can tell. I have to say that when I toured the Other Side Academy, and I've done so several times since that first time, I immediately picked up on the extraordinarily positive vibes. These were people who are making things happen, changing their lives. That, combined with their demonstrable effectiveness of their program, it makes me completely comfortable with sharing our future up-and-coming neighborhood with this fantastic organization. Thanks.
Next will be Peter Brown, followed by Soren Simonson, and then Linnell Lange. Peter, you are unmuted.
Yeah. So I like the idea that trying to help the homeless want to help themselves. The issue I have is the surrounding areas, and my kids actually attend Wallace Stegner Academy. So the issue I have is with a homeless neighborhood basically being there is the increase of homeless people, drugs, alcohol, mentally ill. We already have that issue right over here on 17th South, California Avenue, Redwood Road, 900 West. We have needles, we have all this drug paraphernalia, violence, different things all the time. So my fear and concern is this is going to increase more drug activity, more violence, all this unnecessary stuff, especially near the school. We have kids that walk to and from school, different things like that. And this, I mean, the idea is good. The location is terrible. Having that opportunity to help the homeless is a great thing. I don't think this is the right place to put it. And then, we see all the issues that are going on, like previously had been spoken. Who is able to participate in the program? And if we're not helping the homeless that are on drugs and the most violent people, all that we're doing is increasing an unnecessary problem. Thank you.
And next will be Soren Simonson, followed by Linnell Lange, and then Nui. Soren is in person to speak.
Good evening, Soren Simonson. It's good to be with you this evening. You know me as an architect, a city planner, and the director of the Jordan River Commission. Tonight, I just want to talk to you as friends. I would like to urge you to support this project. I had the great pleasure of working alongside the Other Side Academy as they were developing their campus just east of downtown. And it was remarkable. It transformed me to watch the work that they've been doing to transform lives. Theirs was not a new concept. They borrowed from the Delancey Street program in California, which has 50 years of history, and they've made it better. They've been studying closely the Community First Village in my hometown in Austin, Texas, and what they're proposing builds on that, and it combines innovation from the program that they're familiar with already, plus innovation that's happening around Community First Village into a really, really remarkable program. There are two things that I want to encourage you to do. First of all, don't stop with zoning this property. Rezone all of Redwood Road to create the community gathering places and nodes that have been in the master plan for the west side for almost a decade now, with very little movement. Make all of Redwood Road a form-based zone and create the kind of community character that that district is creating in other communities already, in Sugar House and the Central Ninth. We need all of the west side nodes to be zoned exactly the same way as what's being proposed by the Other Side Village. The other thing I want to mention, it's been almost a year, in about 2 weeks or a week, since the Planning Commission forwarded a really enthusiastic recommendation for this project. We're in a housing crisis. I work and interact with those around the Jordan River on almost a daily basis. I don't need to tell many of you because your communities suffer from the housing crisis. Let's get this done quickly and act like we're in a crisis and bring solutions that are at the heart of innovation to the community. Thank you so much.
Next will be Linnell Lange, followed by Nui, and then Levi de Oliveira. Linnell is in person to speak.
Hi, thank you. I have a few things. First off, I want to say I'm all for it if it's effective, and I want to kind of know how effective it is. Do we have any evidence on how many years and other areas, most likely? How long it's been created, that it's been around? Are there more planned, and where? Concerned also about transportation to and from work and school for these families and individuals. And kind of back to the effectiveness, I am kind of concerned about the drug issue. My daughter's been on the streets before, and she's mental illness and a drug addict. How's that, and what are the rules for them to be in this housing program or tiny houses? Let's see, there was something else. Oh, and what are the rules? And then I have to say, are we getting one of these on the east side? That's it, thank you.
Next, we will hear from Nui, followed by Levi de Oliveira, and then Michelle de Oliveira. Nui is in person to speak.
How you guys all doing? I'd like to thank you for giving me the time, but to build this place here in Glendale, I've been in Glendale for 30 years. I don't know if you guys remember Heartland Apartment. I don't know the name of it, right on 17. They had this program that they brought refugees from Africa a couple of years ago, many years ago, probably 20 or 30 years ago. So they brought them in with no assistance. So what happened during these people coming in with they came into my community, which I live only a block or two away from this apartment complexes. And it was a chaos for many years. They stopped that program. Here we are doing another program. We're helping out these people. I'm all for it. But what's the value if it doesn't work out? So the apartment complex, Heartland, the owner sold it to another owner because the people stayed there, trashed it. Now we're going to do this program in Glendale on my neighborhood. These people sleep right across the street from us. So are we going to put this program? If it doesn't work, then what happened then? That's my 2 cents. I like to help these people. I'm all for it. But I live in here. I got all these people support, but I live in this neighborhood. I deal with these people every day. So there are two different things here. Until you live in my neighborhood, then you finally realize what I'm talking about. I'm passionate about it. This is my neighborhood. And they still live in my neighborhood. If you built this, I guarantee you these people living in the park which I live, they're not going to go there. They want to be free to do whatever they want. Maybe it'll solve it, but my other thing is to it, how do I involve Glendale people in my neighborhood to be part of this? Can have people be in security, help out construction on this thing, be part of it. I told this to them before. Empower the people of Glendale to have these people be part of it. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Next will be Levi de Oliveira, followed by Michelle de Oliveira, and then Janet Hemming. Levi is here in person.
All right. Hi, thank you everyone for your time. I am 100% in support of helping the homeless. Coming from a family that has struggled with drug addiction, homelessness, mental illness, I'm 100% in favor of it. The other side of it is the fact that I'm also raising 4 children in the neighborhood. They have dealt with crime, drug problem, prostitution, all along 1700 South. I personally took my children to the neighborhood cleanups on 1700 South. I think this is a great idea to help the homelessness. The part that I'm struggling with is understanding how the other side village, getting a deal from the city, which let's face it, it's a deal, $1 a year for 40 acres, is going to help my neighborhood. That's the question. Why do we have to shoulder the cost of helping everyone in the city so often? I live by the Fortitude Treatment Center, the halfway house. People there are also trying to change their life. I've met great people there. I interact with them. I walk that place. I see them going to work in the morning. I see them coming back. That's great. That's already in our neighborhood. There are people in the homeless shelter on 3rd West there that are also great people. My question is, can we also bring some of the market value developments that other parts of the city are getting, similar to Sugar House, similar to other parts? So no one can accuse me of not being sympathetic towards the homeless. I'm here for, I'll help anyone that needs help, but I just want my children to have the same opportunities as everyone else's children in the city. Thank you.
Next will be Michelle de Oliveira, followed by Janet Hemming, and then Bernie Hart. Michelle is here in person.
The Westside neighborhoods of Glendale and Poplar Grove are trying to embrace a renaissance wave off the backside of COVID-19 pandemic. Investors are trying to seek out the Westside. Within the last year, the strip center off of Redwood Road in 1700 South reinvested tens of thousands of dollars in the facade of its center. Just August 24th of this year, a project was proposed by a developer to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission to have 10 buildings, 58 units, high-density residential multi-million-dollar project, and was approved along the Redwood Road, only a stone's throw away from the proposed Other Side Village project, less than a mile away. In their proposal, they stated the West Side Master Plan, and it said that this new facility for the high-density area is recognizes the need to encourage growth, redevelopment, and investment in the West Side in order to support the vision of the West Side community as a beautiful, safe, sustainable place for people to live, work, and have fun. The Other Side Village does not fall into any of these categories. It is not beautiful, is not safe, is not sustainable for people to live, work, and have fun. The Other Side Village does little to inspire more investors to seek out the West Side as a place to do business. 40 acres of great usable land off the freeway and just 0.03 miles away from an elementary school leased out to the Other Side Village for $1 for 40 years is not a safe or smart use of the land. The West Side needs more opportunities to solve the housing crisis by building more housing and let the supply and demand settle over pricing. But no investors will look to the building more residential properties when it's shoved up against a homeless shelter. The West Side has burdened most of the city's dirty laundry. The prison was relocated to the West Side. The Volunteers of America Detox Center just got approved from down the street. We house the Fortitude Correction Center off of 9th South and 1700 South, and that houses the halfway inmates. It's time for the West Side to have a chance to thrive. Replaced with, thank you.
Next, we will hear from Jan Hemming, followed by Bernie Hart, and then Oppressive Okava. Jan is here in person.
Distinguished council members, my name is Jan Hemming. I'm chair of the Oak Crest Neighborhood Council. I urge you to support the resolution and rezone ordinance for the Other Side Village. My support is based on 3 simple words: the concept works. I visited their partner program, the Other Side Academy. I stood face to face with those currently enrolled in that life-affirming and life-changing program. They told me personal stories about where their lives were before TOSA and where their lives are now. Before, they spoke of being broken and lost. Now, they have daily work programs, firm commitments to avoid drugs, crime, or other antisocial behavior, and the skills to succeed in life. Many I spoke with tried other programs and failed because those programs didn't have what TOSA offered. What is the secret sauce that residents will find at the village? A caring, connected community, personal accountability, education, job training, and work, long-term social services and support, quality, permanent housing, structure, and rules. To those who expressed concern, look at TOSA's track record. In 6 years of operation, TOSA has not had one dirty drug test, no acts of violence. The recidivism rate is only 12%. There are great neighborhood relationships. It is privately funded. This is a worthwhile investment. Contrast this with Salt Lake's homeless resource centers and shelters, affordable housing apartments, and homeless camps, where millions of dollars are being spent. Regrettably, the greatest number of police calls relate to those places, according to the 2021 police statistics. This is a better model. It works. I urge your approval. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Bernie Hart, followed by Abresa Fakava, and then Joseph Grenny. Bernie is here in person.
Hi, thanks. Good evening. I'm not here to support the other side academy. I'm not here to oppose it either, because it does a great job. They run a great facility. The guys over there, I shop in their store. I've been around. I've talked to them. Great people, and they do great things over there. But my problem is I think their success is being oversold and marketed in a way that will have overall a negative impact on our effort to deal with homelessness. Because the population they deal with is very limited, and they're very successful with the population they deal with. They're all a bunch of great guys. But I'd like to have about 10 of our people from our program. I'd like to be able to refer them to them, and the people that are living in tents and on the street that we deal with every day. And I'd like to have a referral system that I have plenty of people that I can refer to them that we've worked with for a while, that have been in tents and on the street for 10 years, 15 years, have no place to go and have been in and out of the shelter. But I don't think the project is going to help the people that I work with every day. I don't think it's going to be there for the long-term addict that's been in and out of jail 20 times. And I don't think it's going to be there for the woman that's been abused over and over again. And yes, it will help some of those people. But the mental health services and the wraparound services that they're going to rely on to help those folks that aren't dependent on housing don't work. They will not help them live up to their expectations. And their expectations are wonderful. Their intent is great, but they won't be able to help those campers on the street to the degree that those campers and those people living on the street need. And they will, if you remember tonight, write it down, Operation Rio Grande, Palmer Court, all the places that were done with well-intentioned that never impacted the camping problem. I will be back here if I live long enough in 5 years to remind you that you had the expectations of the Other Side Academy helping the people on the street and relieving our camping problem, and remind you it didn't help. And if it does help, I'll be here to apologize. But realistic expectations backed up by evidence and support and oversight is the only way we're going to get the job done. Thank you very much.
Next will be Apressa Facava, followed by Joseph Grenny, and then Jason Seaton. Apressa is in person.
Thank you. I really support this project, but I'm just here to make a few points. I heard it's transitional housing, and I hope it is transitional. I worked for both VOA and the Road Home, and some of my clients at Palmer Court and other places have been there for 10 years, 9 years, transitional. The other thing is lack of data on the homeless folks, the homeless, crisis. There's very lack of data online. I don't know what to do. Me and a couple of friends are really trying to be in that area, but we can't do anything unless we're out there on our own. And to a couple of folks who said some stuff over here, please don't equate homelessness to criminals. Those are two separate things. Okay, thank you. And the fourth one is why I support this, because it gives people something to work towards. If they have housing, it gives them, oh, okay, now I have a roof over my head, maybe I can go get a job. I worked, as I said, I work with these clients, and they truly do go out, try their best when they at least have something that they live in, a house or place. The last idea I have is when it does launch, I hope you guys have people who are trained to work in this field, because VOA, one of the security guards they hired, tased a lady with PTSD while she was waking up and screaming for no reason. At the road home, one of the clients got beaten up, or one of the clients beat up a staff member, and they fired the staff member for standing up for themselves. So they're not trained. They're not training anyone over there. So please, in my experience, if you do have the funds to build these housings, also have the fund to fully train employees before you start them. Thank you. Have a great day.
Next, we will hear from Joseph Grenny, followed by Jason Seaton, and then Wendy Garvin. Joseph is here in person.
Thank you for your time. I want to speak on behalf of the Other Side Village, and I'd like to speak both to the council, but also to some of our potential neighbors who have legitimate concerns. If I lived closer to this community, and I wish there were a 37-acre parcel of land that was near my neighborhood, because that's exactly where we'd be trying to build. But if I were living close to this community, I would ask many of the same questions. And so I want to make an unequivocal commitment to our potential neighbors. First of all, I look forward to 5 years from now getting the apology. And I don't say that glibly. I say that because we're going to try to earn it. We're going to earn the trust, and trust shouldn't be granted unequivocally. We ask that you look at the track record of the Other Side Academy. We came to the east side first. We now have 140 former felons living in a concentrated area on the east side, and the crime rate has dropped as a result. Our commitment to our potential neighbors is to do precisely the same, to bring down the crime rate, to improve the neighborhood, to bring amenities. We'll have security measures within our neighborhood that you can't have in any of the other neighborhoods in Poplar Grove or in Glendale. We'll have cameras, we'll have access, we'll have controlled access, biometric screening, we'll have 24-hour walking security patrols. We offer that on the east side as well in our neighborhood, and that's one of the reasons that the crime rate has dropped. There are people that are seated here that on a regular basis are up late at night walking that neighborhood to make sure it's safe, not just on our property, but on the property of others as well. So our unequivocal commitment to our neighbors is we will be the best neighbors you ever had, and we look forward to welcoming you into our home and into our neighborhood as well. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Jason Seaton, followed by Wendy Garvin, and then Madison Duns. Jason, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'd like to say that there was initially some acreage considered on the east side, but a lot of rich white folks said no to that. And that's why they looked to the west side, because that's the only place left for acreage. That is true. But there's also other things that are wrong with this. It has been brought to my attention that if this whole project fails, the city agrees to pay back Gurney's investment in that land. So if he spends millions of dollars creating something and then it falls apart for some reason, we're on the hook. That is what I learned recently. I kind of think that this has already been decided and that this meeting is a lot of fluff. And to answer some questions, the difference between the academy and the village is folks coming to the academy and getting help have an incentive to do so. A lot of folks are coming from prison and from different areas where they're trying to rebuild their life, and they have that, and that's a great support system, and that's why that works. If we're taking a lot of homeless, this has been kind of pitched as though we're going to pull people from the streets who need housing, and there's probably a small percentage of people that will help. However, the vast majority of the problems that we see around the city will remain. It won't change any of that. It took 10 years of effort to get the RDA zone where this is going in so that we could probably have grocery stores and pharmacy and places to eat, amenities for our portion of the city, which we sorely lack. And it only took Gurney a couple of months to snatch it out from us. And the city's let it happen. All those people in front of you have said yes to this already. It's as if white Jesus showed up to save the day, and they're willing to just suck it up and go with it. And it's really unfortunate. That's all I have to say.
And next we will hear from Wendy Garvin, followed by Madison Macarthur, and then Esther Stoll. Wendy, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you for taking comments today. I first want to start out by saying that I hope that this is successful. I agree with the previous speaker. I think this is a done deal. And so now we need to move forward on making it the best done deal that we've been handed. I have serious concerns about the way the Other Side Academy has been running their existing business. The students who are brought into that facility, as the last caller said, have prison sentences, and they will go back to those prison sentences if they don't follow the rules at the Other Side Academy, up to and including these heartfelt, speakers who have come to tell you how wonderful everything is. They are required to follow all of the rules and to do and say what they're told to do. They are also required to work for the Other Side Academy for 2 full years before they're reimbursed for their work. And I want to make sure that the Other Side Village never falls into that model. I feel like we can do better than that. Everybody deserves to be paid a fair wage for their work. I also have the same concerns as one of the earlier speakers about following best practices in the mental health world. I would strongly encourage the Other Side Academy to join the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness and to look into these best practices. I think that if your model works the way that you say it does, then you will have therapists and social workers knocking down your door to apply, learn your methods, and implement your methods. But as long as there are not social workers with the ethics that social workers vow to follow, we're going to have questions. It's concerning to have people who are forced to work, forced to follow a program, and not given the opportunity to change any of their mental health needs. But again, I hope that this succeeds, and I think that we will all have to work together for this to succeed. So I urge you to join the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness and implement best practices.
And next we will hear from Madison Macarthur, followed by Esther Stoll. Madison is here in person to speak.
My name is Madison Macarthur. I live in Poplar Grove with my husband and my 8-month-old daughter. As I'm sure you know, last week a 17-year-old boy named Brian Rodriguez was shot and killed in front of his home. These are my neighbors directly in front of me. It has been devastating to see his family grieve. I care about the safety and well-being of my neighborhood, and more importantly, the people in it. I also think it has already been decided, but regardless, here we are. A few months ago, I was extremely against the Other Side Village. It felt like the city was once again putting the legitimate needs of the West Side aside. I still feel that way in many ways, but I realize that this is a complicated and decades-deep issue. I was against the Other Side Village, but I have spent time with their team over the past few months. I admit I agreed to attend simply because I was looking for fault. However, I also admit I have been impressed. The Other Side Village appears to be organized, thorough, and confident. They promise a sober living facility. I have brought my baby to many of these visits, and I have met some of the first villagers. Some are here tonight. I have been extremely touched by their excitement and kindness. I want to make it very clear that I have wrestled with this. I have viewed supporting this or not as a moral decision that should not be taken lightly. There are people on both sides that I respect and I admire. Truly, I have lost sleep over this, and I have not come to this conclusion lightly. I realize the Other Side Village is trying to offer a solution within their means. I implore the City Council to make the residents of West Side a priority in safety and infrastructure. I implore the City Council to seriously crack down on camping around our city and parks. I'm angry that this is continuously overlooked and people in our neighborhood do not feel heard. I am distressed that this moved forward as quickly as it did. I don't feel like the West Side residents were listened to. But if it is going to happen, I truly trust that the Other Side Village is capable, and I pray that they will stick to their promises, and I hope that we can hold them to that. I am grateful for outreach that they have done, and I hope they will continue to do so in the future. Thank you.
And finally, we will hear from Esther Stoll, who is in person to speak.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing all of this. And before I even get started, I just want to thank all of you for taking your time to be here at this point. I'm still not convinced that this is going to be a good thing for my community. And I know I have people here speaking about how there are chairs of this and chairs of that and lived in Poplar Grove for this long and West Side, but I still don't feel that this is what Poplar Grove and the West Side needs. And I'm asking all of you, Fowler, Pui, Dugan, Wharton, Mano, Valdemeros, and Pitcher Eschler. These are my children. These are the future that are going to be impacted by this decision. Okay? Your decisions, whether you say yes today or no tomorrow, will impact my children. We live on Indiana. I serve on the community council. I serve on the Human Rights Commission for this city. I am dedicating my time to make sure that my city that I'm living in, that I'm raising these children in, is one that they can walk down the street. Right now, my kids cannot walk down the streets. It is blocked with debris from a trailer. Some kids on the east side are riding up and down their neighborhoods freely, not worrying about getting shot, not worrying about any issue. So if you cannot address that issue for me first and foremost, then there's no way you should give 50 acres of my community to an organization who has never ran such an entity before. I'm sure that you're great. I'm sure that you're wonderful. But this is my community, and these kids come first. Do you understand? They come first, and before you get that 50 acres, their needs will need to be met first. Thank you.
Council Chair, that was the final person registered to speak to this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I move that the council continue the public hearing on the Other Side Village, public benefit analysis and below market lease rate and term, which is item number 6, and rezoning application, which is item number 7, and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Is there any discussion to this motion?
Yes.
Councilmember Pui?
Mr. Chair, I believe that this motion addresses, it gives more opportunities for the community to comment. I would like to say personally that this is a very hard decision for for many of us because the concerns that my community sees and that we have raised over the many months, a few months that I've been sitting in this chair are real. So I want to give another opportunity to my community to comment and to raise their voices for or against. It's important to listen to more of this, and I think we can build a better community with more input. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and proceed to roll call vote. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Hui?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mano?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petra Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That is unanimous. We will now move on to Part C of our agenda, which is potential action items. Item C1 is regarding a rezone at 1330 South, 700 West.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan and a second from Councilmember Pui. Is there any discussion to this? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Pui?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mano?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petra Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. I'll just give it a few minutes to let people exit before we move on to more public comments. I'm just going to say a 5-minute recess. Okay. Everyone, we're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll be right back. Would please close that door as soon as Esther and her family get out. See ya. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Those of you that are remaining in the back, and that don't have headphones, can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we are at Section C of our agenda, which is, no, we're not. I'm sorry, we're on Section D, which is questions to the mayor from the city council. And for the first time, we don't have someone here, but she just left. But I appreciate them being here anyway. It was a very long night, and I appreciate the mayor being with us for most of our work session as well. I didn't have any comments for the mayor. Anybody else? Okay. Then we will move on to comments to the city council. Is there anyone here or online that would like to give to comment on an item that was not already heard this evening? Okay, it looks like
Council,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
it looks like there's 3 people registered for general comment.
Okay, we have one here in the audience as well. So I'm not sure what the order is, but
Okay. I'll go off my list, which is the order that we received comment cards.
Great.
So the first will be Keiko Jones, followed by Charles Coltrane, and then George Chapman. Keiko, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. So I understand most people have left, but I guess important people are still here. My name is Keiko, and I live in the Guadalupe neighborhood on the west side. I stayed away from these city council meetings for a while. It's because I realized whatever I say, either in the meetings or to the city council members personally, doesn't matter. I will not make a difference. In the past, I spoke up about a need for more off-street parking, and the city is getting away with fewer and fewer such parking requirements, which makes the city a developer's heaven. And the Tribune article about the state's funding of affordable housing was another example. It listed numbers of deeply affordable units. Murray gets 5, Mill Creek 11, downtown Salt Lake about 160, Salt Lake City's east side 5, and Salt Lake's west side about 300. So there were some incidents with Somali gangs, drug dealings, and gun violence in Guadalupe neighborhood involving some tenants from the high-density, low-income apartments. We are getting more density, more population, more crime, more traffic, more homeless people, more taxation, and less sustainability. And I support the Other Side Village, but I hope it will be successful if it gets approved. And finally, I just want to express my admiration for George Chapman for his tenacity and the strength and energy to keep going. Thank you.
Next will be Charles Coltrane, and then George Chapman, and Charles is in person.
Good evening. My name is Charles Coltrane. I'm a resident of the West Side community. I have been a resident there since in the 50s. In the 1970s, I bought a canoe and started paddling the Jordan River. I believe it to be one of the nation's great linear parks with a potential to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people enjoying its beauty and serenity. That park has become a cesspool again. In the 50s, it was the sewer for Salt Lake City before the sewage treatment plants were built. Again, with the homeless population, it is becoming a sewer. Not only that, but the trees along the river have been falling over and falling into the river. On my wife and one of our last trips out on the river, we had to lay down in our canoe to get underneath the trees. One or two of these trees have been taken out, but as I have wandered along the river and not been on it again because I'm afraid of getting snagged into a drain, I watched, and they're not all corrected. We have one of the most beautiful linear parks in the nation. Why are we ignoring it? Why are we building linear grassways in the city that require water when I'm told I have to stop watering my lawn? I'm curious at this. And we do this while we ignore the most beautiful parkway. In the video essay, the pictorial essay of the Reawakened Beauty, the Jordan River was given its true glory, and it is a beautiful place. We need to protect it. Thank you.
And next we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Jason Seaton. George, you are unmuted.
Okay. With at least $500,000 coming from the legislature to buffer the effects of taking a shelter, Mill Creek is going to put in 2 additional police officers to be deployed primarily on foot patrol. So what happened to this city? Mill Creek will also hire a contractor to pick up trash and junk, and it's brainstorming on how to aid residents for items like lighting and security cameras. Again, what happened to Salt Lake City? City shelters will be significantly increasing intake, and police walk-in patrols shouldn't wait for a year, which is essentially a laughable Monty Python skit. I mean, come on. Nod, nod, wink, wink, say no more, say no more. We're going to put police there in a year. Come on. This city should not be ignoring prostitution and drug use and dealing around the shelters. It actually encourages the homeless to camp. On the GO bond, the city has ignored the West Side for years after closing the West Side pools and is now saying that if the West Side doesn't get Glendale Park, it's a fault of voters. That's an incredible insult because this city has had a big increase in spending in the last year, but what happened about prioritizing Glendale Park? And street conditions should be prioritized also. Fair conditions should not be acceptable for street conditions. And again, what happened to inclusionary zoning? I agree that the Jordan River needs more upkeep, and the city seems to be ignoring it. The bushes that are hiding criminal activity should be cut down. You told us a few years ago cutting trees in Pioneer Park, which we fought against, would decrease crime, but it didn't.
Time.
All I'm asking.
Next, we will hear from Jason Seaton. Jason, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Sorry, folks, I'm very sick. It's hard to do this. I agree. The cost of parks, I know that there's a lot of money that's going towards Glendale Park. I think it's a drop in the bucket compared to what's been going on in other parts of the city. Poplar Grove Park, I still can't get irrigation fixed there. It's still not, it's deplorable. and the river is just horrible. And it gets $9 million in that bond you guys set up. It should be, the money going for Pioneer Park should be going to the river and the riverway. That park is the one that needs all that money. The last thing, I have about the other side village is that they never came to Poplar Grove. They never came to our community council. They went around us. They went around to all the other communities around us. They've gone to lots of folks everywhere else, but they never came to our neighborhood to talk to us about what they wanted to do in our neighborhood. Never once. We're underserved. And
I'm sorry,
And,
just a point of order. The comment about the Other Side Academy was during the public hearing, Council Chair, and this was.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. If you have, so we've already taken public comment on that issue from you, and so you can either use the rest of your time to talk about a different issue that hasn't been covered, or you can give up the rest of your time.
No. So back to the parks.
Okay.
Still underserved. Can't get things repaired there in timely manner. I keep getting promised about all the things that we're going to do to West Side Parks, and all the money keeps going to Pioneer Park. Over and over again in less than 5 or 6 years, we've done it. We're going to do it again, and it's just an amazing thing for that to happen. It doesn't make any sense. No one's been able to explain to me why about any of it. And I think it's a complete waste of money. And there are better places and places that have been so underserved by that. We have so much more green space on our side of town that needs to be resolved.
Thank you.
And that was the final commenter.
Okay. We are now at item E on our agenda, which is new business. We have only one new business item, which is advice and consent for the Salt Lake City engineer, Mark Stevens. I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion to this? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Hui? Yes. Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petra Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mark. We are on item F, which is unfinished business. We have item F1, which is Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund, or EDLF, for the Cava Cafe. I'll look for a motion.
I move that the council adopt the ordinance approving a $50,000 loan for Cava Cafe from the Economic Development Loan Fund.
Second.
Yeah.
I have a second from, I have a motion from Councilmember Petra Eschler, a second from Councilmember Valdemoros. Is there any discussion to this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Pui?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Petra Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Cava Cafe. We're on item F2, which is budget contingency for the Department of Sustainability. I'll look for a motion. Still looking for that.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to start with the first one. I move the council adopt a resolution approving the satisfaction of conditions on the $125,000 in the Department of Sustainability's budget so that it may be used to conduct a proposed community food assessment with the following legislative intents. The legislative intents are not conditions of the funds being released. Number one, the department report to the council on collaboration opportunities with other entities doing or charged with doing food security or food equity work, such as Utah State University Extension Services. And number two, the department works actively with those entities to determine and report whether future data gathering, analysis, benchmarking, and other outcomes and guideposts of projects like the community food assessment could instead be performed by entities other than the city in order to both continue to build on the foundations that the city has established and relieve the city taxpayers of funding what is currently a regional beneficial service. Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Mono. Is there any discussion to this? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and roll call it. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Very fish yes from Councilmember Fowler. Pui?
I'm sorry, I'm not answering this also as clear as you probably want. There is a potential.
That one.
Yes, I would like to amend the motion based on some of the comments that we had, the discussions we had last week, and there is a potential additional to that motion.
Cindy Lou's going to school us as usual.
No,
I'm going to go back to the motion was made and seconded, and let's have a discussion. So we'll strike, I hereby strike your vote.
As chairperson.
As chairperson. And yeah, go ahead and make your amendment or substitute motion or whichever you'd like to do.
I mean, I would like just to add some language. It's long. Not the right person to read
Sure.
5 paragraphs, but
We're doing, this is a joint amendment on this motion. So we would add that in addition to the motion that Councilmember Dugan made, we'd move that the council express its intent to review the findings of the Sustainability Department on the potential for collaboration with other governmental entities. Prior to the council voting to fund additional food security staffing and projects in the city general fund budget with an eye toward future reliance on the levels of government that are officially charged with and funded to accomplish food security and food equity work. Then we continued that the council encourages the administration to proactively work with the state as the 2022 legislation and ongoing funding framework for food security and food equity is implemented to increase the likelihood that the state structure will be equipped to provide information, data analysis, and potential strategy support that is relevant and useful locally as well as statewide, will maximize the effective investment of federal, state, and county tax dollars to directly enhance the ability of organizations to provide food and services to the public in need of those services, will incorporate important local issues in the established formal reporting to the state legislature, and that the city taxpayers receive maximum benefit from the federal, state, and county taxes they pay. The council further recognizes that the collaboration will not be successful for Salt Lake City taxpayers if the provision of localized data is not an established part of the system. That's our amendment.
You accept that amendment?
Yes.
Would you like to second that still, Councilmember
Yes. So we're combining, we're doing both motion 1 and motion 1A.
Yes.
Yes.
In entirety.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I was intending that we would just vote. I thought we were just voting on them separate, but yes, I want both. So yes, I accept the amendment.
Great.
No, there's further discussion.
Any further discussion? Doesn't look like it.
Revote,
Then we'll revote. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
strong yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
Mono. Yes. Valdemoros.
I have a question. Sorry, I said yes for the discussion, but you start.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I did. I want I
Okay.
understand that
Okay.
this is okay for them to figure this out with the money that they requested, figure out if there's a need within the city, and also there is if there's any other state agency or other funding that is already working on it, that they come back with that information, and then also that if there is or not, then that they still lobby for things of the such at the legislature level and the county level, correct?
One other
That's correct.
thing is that they can conduct the study that they're planning. So they would go proceed with that. They don't have to come back to you before they proceed with the study that they're planning.
That they're planning, okay. But let's say the study comes back and there is a need and there are no needs out there, or no groups that are really doing the work that needs to be done specifically to Salt Lake City, then that's a question that I have. Are we going to discuss that in the future, where we'll decide, oh, maybe there is something that we want to invest taxpayers? Okay.
Yes.
Because to me, if we would just say, well, we don't want to do it, just go lobby, then we're spending some amount of money for our staff to go lobby, for something. Anyway, thanks. Thank you for that time. And I'm a yes.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Pichu Eschler?
Yeah.
Splendid. I am a yes as well. That is unanimous. We are now on to the consent item of our agenda. I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Poi, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Council Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, that was just approval on consent, right?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Approving the consent agenda. We'll proceed to a roll call vote. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Poi?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Tetro Eschler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That is approved. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We can reach zero fatalities on our roadways.